Okay, assalamu alaikum and welcome to another live stream. I hope you guys are all well. Mashallah, a lot of you guys are already on. So today's going to be very interesting. Hopefully another interesting live. I did a video on Richard Dawkins a few days ago, I think, in regards to his moral outlook or the way he tries to account for morality on his atheism and naturalism. And we're gonna do a bit more of a detailed discussion today on that. And what I'm going to use is his clip from the Joe Rogan show, where he elaborates a little more. I have read his book, Outgrowing God, where he elaborates further. But the general points that he makes are going to be covered today. And we're going to sort of highlight why his view does not put him in any position or give him any moral high ground from where he can sort of point the finger and shoot down religions and ideologies and whatever else or whoever else that may be. So guys, before I get into today's discussion, we've got a few of you guys on, a few of you brothers and sisters, mashallah, that are regular. We've got Oscar on as well, who's regular. So what we're going to do, the way we're going to do it is this. I'm going to get brother Nadeem Ashraf on. Nadeem is going to, with me, who's Dow brother from the Dow Motivation channel, we're going to go through Richard Dawkins' clip. Sorry, we're going to go through his clip, break it down, share our thoughts, try to highlight the key issues and problems, and then following that, we're going to go into the Q&A, and we're going to have more of an extensive Q&A today. So the first 15-20 minutes is going to be the analysis, the rest is going to be Q&A. And I know some of you brothers and sisters are specifically coming today, as Nadeem has told me, to get some answers to some of your questions, so we're going to be addressing those too. MashaAllah, we got Darwinian delusions on. I might actually get Sabur on as well. Actually, Sabur, can you come on? Let me know. I'm going to send you the link too, inshallah.
Bring him on, bring him.
We're going to bring him on. I'm going to send you the link too, inshallah. Why not? Get a bit of spice on the show. Bit of chili sauce. Chili sauce with the Sabur, inshallah. Okay. So, oh, by the way, because you guys have been requesting, let me get Nadeem on first, inshallah. Let's see. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How you doing, bro?
Good, bro. How's things?
Alhamdulillah. You got a cough or hay fever, yeah? Or something?
Yeah, I got hay fever. Yeah, it's normal cough. It's nothing. Alhamdulillah, it's nothing to worry about. Brother Darwinian Delusion, Sabur is rejecting the offer. He's actually, I think he didn't like the chili comment or spice comment. So,
the one guy, he's always online, always on live streams, doesn't want to come here, yeah? So,
yeah, it'll be good if you can come on, bro. Well, you know what's going to happen, bro? I'm going to play the clip. As soon as he sees the clip, he's going to get excited, inshallah. And he's going to get inspired and he's going to come on, inshallah. So he has the link.
Sabur, don't worry, you won't take away your subscribers, bro.
No. He'll come on, inshallah. Let the clip roll and he'll come on. I'm pretty sure, inshallah.
Get the bait on, yeah.
Before I do that, bro, because, brothers and sisters have been requesting as to, what I've been reading currently and any reading suggestions. So I just wanted to share a few bits and pieces. And I thought the best way to do this is every live stream, just to share some of the books I've been going through. So one of the books that I've been going through and I found quite beneficial, and I think it's a good read that I'm going through at the moment, is called The Enlightenment Quran. The Politics of Translation and the Construction of Islam. This is a very interesting book, guys. I know the screen is flipped and I can't do anything about it at the moment because my computer doesn't let me. I'm on a Chromebook. No, it's not Corona, alhamdulillah. It's just the hay fever / dry throat. So by Zaid El-Marsafi, I think that's how you say his name. It's a very good book, bro. And this particular book, guys, is what the author does is he goes through the period of enlightenment and he sort of highlights how the Enlightenment thinkers, some of them at least, had a lot of interaction or to whatever extent they could at the time with Islam. And they actually studied the Quran as well. And in some cases, it positively influenced their thinking. Obviously, at that time, we're talking about the 17th. We're talking about the 17th and 18th century here. And generally, the translations of the Islamic material that was available at the time was quite negative, because a lot of the translations were done by certain Christian missionaries who wanted to present a particular image of Islam. Nevertheless, bro, there were some decent translations. And I gave the example of Voltaire in one of my previous videos, where he came across and initially had a very negative outlook on Islam. And then over the decades, it changed. And when he came across Sell's translation, he was a totally different man. He actually started defending Islam based on his study. The other book is this book I'm going through, and it's actually a phenomenal book from what I've read so far. Rethinking Islam in the West. It's brilliant. It's very concise. And I'm not going to comment on this much yet because I haven't gone through a lot of it yet. But it's a very, very good book from the perspective of, how we are to understand Islam in the context of the West, especially in the 21st century.
Not rethinking Islam, like making new rules or updating Islam, because the title.
No, not at all, bro. If
Just
anything, what the author is highlighting is he shows that what happened during one of the things he highlights is
how we're looking at Islam, how we're understanding Islam.
It's a brilliant book because it's very academic. And what he highlights is that what happened during the period of enlightenment is there was a certain channeling of thought and focus for the world, which was to do, and the underlying philosophy was of progress, and in particular material progress, and everything therefore was aligned with that goal. And what ended up happening, yes, we progressed materially, but what he highlights is that we degraded in many other ways, right?
Well, another way of describing it is this long, slow reaction to Christianity and all its failings. The questions that Christianity couldn't answer.
Yes.
This is where the enlightenment came, and philosophers came, and all that.
What happened was they jumped the gun. They went from the persecution and of Christianity and the if you like, the misuse
some of the theological questions that Christianity couldn't answer. The problem.
It wasn't even theology. Primarily, it was just the oppression and the misuse of power by the Christian state at the time. And they jumped from that to free thinking and rationality, and they bypassed everything in the process. But what he highlights is that in doing so, we lost the balance, basically, that humanity needs and the world needs for us to live in a way where we're not destroying. And what he highlights is that, yes, we progress technologically and scientifically, but we've ended up destroying the world in so many ways because of that. Human beings are being destroyed from an existential perspective, from a spiritual perspective. We're losing our bearings. He highlights we're destroying the world through global warming and all of these issues that we're creating, which are man-made. And he highlights that Islam is the solution, and he provides a very sort of phenomenal way of looking at a triad of aspects or triad of things which we need to refocus on again, which Islam gives the right focus on that the world needs. And it's a very interesting book. I haven't finished this. I'm not going to go into it too much, but another book quickly. You've probably come across this one or seen this one yourself. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Imran Khan recently he tweeted this as well, didn't he? On one of his tweets.
That must have helped his sales, mashallah.
Possibly. I've had this for several years.
It's a gem of a book. Yeah.
It's a brilliant book, bro. The way it covers A to Z, basically. It's a very beautiful summary.
Bro, before you continue with books, the comment you said before about religion, and you mentioned about religion and suffering. So this is, I think, what Dawkins, and in line with our today's show, is what he discusses, that religion causes a mess or something like that. So I guess we're going to find out in a minute, inshallah. We discuss it. Osama Santawi is here from Italy, mashallah. And
mashallah, is that Sheikh Osama?
Sheikh Osama, yeah. Him and Sabura having a little chat and talking about your haircut and stuff. So,
alhamdulillah, bro. It had to be done. Otherwise, I would have suffered. The one last book I want to quickly mention is this book, and I've actually mentioned this several times.
You're reading all these books at one at a time, or do you have like a particular day, or what? Like
my particular strategy, bro, is the issue is with millennials in general is that we have a very limited attention span, right? And especially because I never used to read before. I mean, Sabur will tell you I knew nothing about anything, yeah. And when I started reading, I struggled a lot with sticking to one book and reading it all the way through, and I still do. So what I find works for me is going from book to book hopping basically. And this book, although I like to have like several books which cover one specific topic and just bounce around on those books basically. This one, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, bro.
Oh yeah, no, go.
Yeah, this one.
Video on this, didn't you?
Findings from the Soviet Experiment in Secularization. This is a phenomenal book, bro. It's written by a sociologist, and he from a sociological perspective, he assesses what happened in the Soviet Union, and he highlights how that was a failed project in trying to remove
Marx. I've actually studied that a long time ago, alhamdulillah. So we'll discuss it someday. But talking of books, this wasn't part of the thing, but this is alhamdulillah, I managed to find time to read the revised edition. You're just one of those things. So talking about books, mashallah, I was on it anyway. I was going to try and finish this, so alhamdulillah. We should always never. There should never be enough plugins for this book. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, everything I've just shown is being made look inferior. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, bro. To be honest, the Divine Reality is one of the most phenomenal books in the English language for Muslims and non-Muslims to do with Islam, atheism, materialism, and all of these types of topics, bro. It's brilliant, mashallah. I remember when Hamza was writing it. It took him about 2 years, and there was times he seemed like he was losing it.
Yeah, he did lose it. I think he did.
Yeah, bro, subhanallah.
If he's watching, sorry,
may Allah bless him, bro. May Allah accept it from him, man.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Okay,
right, so
Bismillah. Let's start, bro. So,
what are we doing? Taking comments, or are we going to do the video? What's the plan?
This is where Sabur is going to just bounce, inshallah, onto the live stream, inshallah, if he's still there.
Sabur, that looks like Dawkins. That's not Sabur, bro.
Yeah, that is Dawkins. So the clip, bro, what we're going to do is I want to discuss Richard Dawkins' outlook on morality. And the reason I'm picking him and the reason I'm focusing on him when it comes to this question of morality, bro, is for a few reasons. Number one, because he is seen as the godfather, the leader, the god, the great deity of atheism in the 21st century.
With that suit, he does look like a good godfather, yeah.
Yeah, he's obviously amongst the four horsemen, and if anything, he is the lead. He always has been amongst the four horsemen. So he's a good reference point when you're addressing atheism. Obviously, now we can't generalize that Richard Dawkins' view is the view of all atheists. Absolutely not. Many different atheists have many different outlooks and perspectives in regards to morality and how they arrive at what they believe is good and bad. But Dawkins is because he holds such a respected position amongst new atheists. There he is. Sabur is on. He's on, mashallah. He could. I told you. I know this guy inside out. He saw Dawkins' face, and he couldn't help himself, mashallah.
The bait worked, bro. The bait worked. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sabur, what happened to your hair, bro?
Bro, don't ask, man. Don't ask.
All of us, bro. All of us. Subhanallah.
I can help you out with that, bro. I can help you out with that.
It's the Corona cut.
It's the Corona no cut, yeah. It's just let it grow. Alhamdulillah.
Just let it go. Yeah.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna play this clip to you. We're gonna go through it, and I want you guys to give me your raw thoughts on what you see and what you make of what he says, inshallah. Yeah. So without further ado, let me start playing this, inshallah.
Unless you believe in a higher power.
What do you think? Let's extract this.
By the way, guys, before I carry on, just a bit of a context. The first few minutes we don't need to go into because it's quite long. But what he does is he attacks religion generally in regards to morality, and he says Islamic morality is terrible, is atrocious. Obviously, he's misrepresenting many things, and he's fixing things into Islam which don't really belong to Islam. Nevertheless, but that's what he does. He says this is bad, this is evil, this is wrong. So he's fired away at Islam in particular, and now this is where we're carrying on from.
To this concept of a higher power, let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of where do you think people get their morals and their ethics from?
Now that's a profoundly difficult question. We clearly don't get them from religion, and yet we get them from somewhere, and you can demonstrate that by the fact that the moral values of any particular century are markedly different from those of other centuries, even decades. So in the 21st century, we here now have moral values which are really significantly different from 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 300 years ago. And within any one of those centuries, you could take people who are in the vanguard of moral progress. For example, in the 19th century, Abraham Lincoln, Charles Darwin, T.H. Huxley would have been on the liberal progressive end of the spectrum, and other people would have been on the opposite end. But even Abraham Lincoln, for example.
Sabur, I feel it, bro. I feel you wanted to say something.
That name came.
Darwin is mentioned. Them being the progress of the moral spectrum.
Huxley mentioned as well.
Yeah. What do you make of that, bro? About Huxley and all of these guys, you know, and their outlook on morality, and what he seems to suggest here, that them being on the more liberal end of the spectrum, the more progressive end of the spectrum in regards to morality.
Yeah. So look, there's two mistakes here that he's made. The first mistake is he's obviously pointing out that there's something very good here that everybody's trying to achieve. There's some sort of standard, right? But the whole problem from an evolutionary perspective, according to his own admission, which is why this is a contradiction, is that moral judgments are subject to the works of evolution, and therefore they are arbitrary. Just as arbitrary as us having 5 fingers rather than 4, that's how arbitrary is the value judgment that rape is wrong. This is according to his own admission. So this idea that, you know, morality is getting better, you know, Huxley and Darwin and others, they were at the vanguard of you know, liberal moral norms, and now they're outdated, and he's also alluding to the idea that in 100 years from now he will be seen as backward and other people will be better. That's a contradiction, because he believes in moral subjectivity. It's all relative. The second contradiction that he has, and this is why he is not a good representation of evolutionary biology, he says, you know, morality doesn't come from religion. He's wrong here from an evolutionary biology point of view, because morality and religion both come from natural selection. So they actually both come from natural selection, because they're both beliefs at the end of the day. The belief in God, according to him, is false, and the belief in rape is wrong is also false. So morality and religion are basically identical. They're just collective fictions to help survive and reproduce. And Dawkins should read up on some evolutionary psychology, including, if you watch a video with him and Brett Weinstein, who is a evolutionary psychologist, and you can see how Dawkins is clearly outmastered by this guy, who's younger than him, but you know, he's a popular science writer, but in no way does he represent, you know, evolutionary biology in any way.
Okay, subhanallah. Absolutely, bro. This just the nerve, bro. I don't get it. Like he out blatantly he's just presenting a subjective case morality at best, bro, with issues, and then he finds the high ground to fire away at different religions and outlooks and say this is bad or this is evil according to what standard, right? Nadeem, you looked at this clip, bro. What did you make of?
What was his first comment? Wasn't it like a Plaza comment, which is what religion? I don't know what he said exactly. Religion.
We get it from morality, not religion. We get morality. Not from religion, basically.
So he starts off like such a blanket statement, and like you said, it's the arrogance, the nerve, you know, like just saying that. And you know, the thing is, even if it's true, he's supposed to be intellectual. You know, Imran, at the beginning, you said the reason why we're picking on Dawkins or studying his things because he is seen as a world leader of atheism, and he's seen as someone people look up to. From a Pakistan point of view, who I interact with, from youth who are in the UK, and they always quote him. But if they quote him and they always put him as an intellectual, he's an intellectual evolutionary biologist, produced books, God Delusion, you know, classic, been around for decades, professor, all that, right? Although he's not a professor, but the professor type. Then if he is an academic, then why is he not citing academic references, right? Rather than saying, you know, I mean, anybody, someone like me could just say, oh, atheism is nonsense, rubbish, yeah? But then I should give citations, I should give some references, I should give some quotes, right? He just does, as an academic, he should at least say 1 or 2 quotes. Religion can't define morals. So what's your basis? That's number one. And, you know, so as an academic, that goes out the window. Number two, the other point was, you know, just the arrogance of it. And this is why I don't understand why people look up to him, bro. And I think one of the thought that this clip gave me, bro, other clips I've seen from your shows and Darwin Delusions and others, I think it's a feeling of, look, he wrote this book. He's been writing since the 60s, no, 70s, right? And it's like, you know, he's kind of done his contribution to the world. He's written the book. In this video, he talks about how the God Delusion has been translated to Arabic, certain millions, right? In Afghanistan, in Pakistan. So it's almost like, look, I've done my bit. The book is out there now. His Sadqa Jariyah, as we say, right? And, you know, making people confused. I've done my bit, you know, and whatever I say now in interviews, in podcasts, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to ramble and rant and say just nonsense. That's the feeling I get. Like, I've done my work now. It doesn't matter. I've done my bit, and I can almost get away with anything I want. That's the force. Yeah. That's the image I get from someone like him.
From a purely psychological sort of perspective, what I get from this clip, bro, is he's not sitting there as an academic. He's sitting there as someone who has an agenda, who's trying to push his particular views. as an atheist, and that's
And really
quite
badly, really badly.
But let's not get. I don't want to get ad hominem on him too much. Let's go through what he's saying and deal with his points, inshallah. So I'm going to carry on playing the video, inshallah.
Made a speech I quoted in Outgrowing God, in which he said, of course, nobody would seriously think that black people are the equal of white people. Nobody would seriously say that black people should be allowed to vote or should be allowed to marry white people. This is Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves,
Right.
and was, as I say, in the forefront of progressive thought. Charles Darwin, again, was in favor of freeing the slaves. He was passionately anti-slavery, but he too thought that there was no question about black people being equal of white people. They obviously weren't. And Huxley, Thomas Huxley, again, Darwin's bulldog, thought the same way. Now, those people were at the forefront, as I say. Today, they would.
All right. So look, he had a bit of a frog in his throat. He didn't really want to say. He didn't want to really acknowledge Huxley and in that particular way. It didn't seem like it, because he has to admit that Huxley and these individuals in the 19th and 20th century, they were some of their writings were deeply, racist. Their views were deeply racist. They were racists, right? And obviously today, many people like to cover up these points. I know Sabur has mentioned or spoken about their sort of racist outlooks quite a lot in the past, and I think it's quite pertinent, bro, because what we're seeing in the world today, I believe in some ways is still related to the thinking and the philosophy of some of these thinkers in the past, and we're seeing racism still apparent in the world today. What's happening in America right now, it's not gone anywhere, right? So give me your thoughts. Let's start with Sabur, bro, in regards to Huxley, in regards to racism and how that may tie in with the evolutionary outlook and how that may tie in with atheism. Give us your thoughts, bro. What do you make of these points?
So this is where we have to give credit to Darwin and discredit Dawkins here, right? And that is that in many ways, Darwin, his thought was more mature than Dawkins. Dawkins is being a little bit immature here in terms of his evolutionary thinking. You see, when this issue of Darwin's racism or Huxley's racism or the racism of these early evolutionists come up, Dawkins pretends as if there's a simple solution to this, which is everybody was a racist, right? And at that time, it is perfectly normal. And this is simply false. This is simply false. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was not racist. He said a black is equal to a white. He was not selfish. He said, love for others what you love for yourself. So, this whole idea that, oh yeah, the entire world, we were all racist anyway. No, we weren't. Islam, as a religion, teaches you not to be racist. There may be Muslims that are racist. In fact, you could argue to an extent most Muslims have some form of tribalism, racism, nationalism, or these types of things. But look, here's the point. He's making another contradiction. He's basically saying that Darwin was a product of his time. That's why he's racist. However, here's the contradiction. Darwin used evolution to justify his racist views. Okay, that's the first point, which Dawkins needs to recognize. And that's why that point is false, that he's just a product of his time. And here's the second, and here's the sledgehammer. If Dawkins is saying that Darwin was a product of his times and his racism was a product of his times, why is it that Darwin was at the forefront of the anti-slavery movement? He was at the forefront of the idea of treating blacks better. In fact, his views on black people were way better than a lot of Victorian people, which is why I have a lot of respect for him. However, at the same time, he had very negative views about black people because of evolutionary theory, because they're much closer to the chimpanzee than we are. So what we're going to recognize, right, is that it's not going to work by simply saying Darwin is a product of his times for two reasons. Firstly, Darwin's own thoughts were different to those of the people that were his contemporaries. And secondly, he particularly used evolutionary theory to justify the inferiority of the black people in terms of their intellect. So I think Darwin would be disappointed with the way that Dawkins is misrepresenting him here.
Yeah. Very powerful points, bro. What? Let me press you on something, because look, what we see today, bro, is that from a material perspective, we have progressed so much. You can argue from some perspectives and materially, yet we find ourselves in a place morally where we can't deal with some very basic, universal wrongs that we all can understand, such as racism, right? It's still prevalent in the world today. We're seeing its effects today, literally, like today as we speak right now. Do you think, bro, some of the thinking of these people in the past, such as Huxley and Darwin and even Russell and all of these thinkers and philosophers, is still plaguing people today and the thinking of people today? Look,
I would say definitely yes to that, but I would add something important. People get, especially some atheists, they get annoyed at me when I bring up the race card when it comes to evolution. They think it's a distraction. It's not a distraction. The reason why it's not a distraction, and Dawkins needs to admit this, is because evolutionary theory it's not necessarily about common descent, right? So it's not because of human chimp ancestry alone. It's because of the mechanism of natural selection. That's the primary reason.
We have lost him. We've lost Sabur. Khair, Nadeem, I was going to come to you anyway. Let's get your thoughts, bro. Tell me, I want you to pick up on where Sabur left off about the Prophet ﷺ over 1400 years ago abolishing racism, right?
Yeah, I think I was looking at comments as well, bro, and they're saying that the Prophet ﷺ and slavery and racism. Look, as we say, the biography of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a historically it's been verified. Yeah, the veracity cannot be questioned. Non-Muslims have written about him, and Muslims have written about him. Historians, objective, eminent historians throughout the centuries, and different people had agendas. So you can't really deny the facts that happened on the ground 1400 years ago. His life, his seerah, as we say. And when we look at his life, we see that again and again that he had people like Bilal, who was a black, African from Abyssinia. We have people like Suhaib al-Rumi, who was from he wasn't Arab, he was from the Byzantine area. We have Salman al-Farsi from Persia, from a different planet. And some narrations talk about they describe their complexion. So if that was the case, and this is a time when we say the Arabs were at their most eminent, where they were the most proud. That's all they had, our language and their tribes and everything. So if these people, not only did they join the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became Muslims, but they flourished. They became leaders of the Ummah of that time. They became Bilal. Some of these became scholars. Salman al-Farsi was known to be a scholar or person of knowledge. He lived to the old age. So these are all there. And if the Prophet was racist, then he just said, "Look, no, can you go away? Or if you are going to join my Sahaba, the companions, I'll just put you at the back, and as like a token." No, he promoted them, subhanAllah.
Well, and that's a phenomenal points you just made there. Firstly, you mentioned Bilal. May Allah be pleased with him. Look, one of the main one of the well-known companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and was
a major companion.
Absolutely, and what's profound, bro, that this was a society which was, if you like, it was all about tribalism, and it was all about their own people, right? Now, to take someone in a society which is not, so here's the issue. Let's create that let's paint the picture here for a second. You've got society which is all about tribalism and their own people, right? Their own race, essentially. Then you've got slavery, which is rampant at the time, rampant, literally
throughout the world.
Throughout the world, even in Arabia, amongst these Bedouin Arabs, right? And then on top of that, now in this environment, you have a man, the Prophet, peace be upon him, who comes forward with a new religion, which abolishes this slavery. And here's the thing, I'm going to clarify this, because slavery was still there, but we need to understand the context here. He comes and he takes a person who is from Abyssinia, right? And he elevates him to the level he's equal with everyone else, right? There is no racism anymore. The Prophet, he was the mu'addim, he was the one that would give adhan. He would climb up on top of the Kaaba and give adhan, right? The Prophet, peace be upon him, is very close with Bilal.
And someone calling to prayer in certain traditions, it's regarded as a leader. A leader calls people. So Bilal was given leadership status.
So this is phenomenal. And in regards to slavery in particular, I think it's very important to point out that Islam came at a time where slavery was almost like, it was almost like some sort of ideology in the 21st century that we adhere to, and it's commonly accepted. right? So Islam came, it didn't come and say, look, remove. What it did was it was a gradual process.
Yeah, it has to be.
Islam, it had to be done gradually because it was so embedded within the structure and the society of the world. It was embedded within
because if it was like a sudden thing, and this is the wisdom of Islam and the wisdom of the Prophet and his foresight. If it was done suddenly, then you'll see that there'll be chaos in society, and these people who are even some of the seerah, I think Rahiq al-Maktoum, the seerah nectar, and they talk about this, that even although there were Arabs that are very cruel, there were still Arabs, they looked after their slaves even before Islam. So they were getting paid, they had certain privileges and rights and that kind of thing.
And bro,
if they were abolished, my point is, if they were completely abolished all of a sudden, then they'll be in a system where they were completely abject poverty. They'll lose their citizenship, because then the citizenship was tribe support. Like we have visas now. The visa then was tribal support. They'll be out of a state. They'll be like like land orphans. So where would they go? So this is the reason the hikmah and
absolutely, bro. And there's so much wisdom in this, man. It's even to the point where, look, some of the way to expiate certain sins and acts is through freeing a slave in Islam, or was the case at the time where slavery was prevalent. So Islam encouraged the removal of slavery, but it did it in a way with wisdom where it wasn't going to affect the people that were in slavery at the time if it was immediate, right? So that's a very, and Jew Stadot, I think that's how you say the name, they say, yes, slaves were to be freed and treated like our own family members. You think slavery is over now just because you live in the first world, you think there is no more slavery. Absolute phenomenal point, bro.
I was going to add something and he kind of
to be honest, bro, I would say slavery is more rampant today than ever in the past. It's just taken on a different form. It's taken on a different shape.
Bro, I had a discussion with someone and they brought in ancient slavery. We're talking Spartacus and the Greco-Romanian times. We're talking slavery of the transatlantic trade. We're talking slavery in around the time 1400 years ago. It's been there. And he said, look, he was a very pessimistic kind of person. No matter what we can do, it's always going to be there. Yeah, I think he was mixed race, right? And I said, look, there's actually a very, very, very easy solution to this. You may not like it because it's cliche, because I like to just make things easy and simple. But true liberation throughout the ages has to be in the servitude to the Creator. That transcends above everything. You can make the laws. We can compare Islamic laws with Western laws. We can try and compare the Americans, the Abraham Lincoln, as the Dawkins mentioned, and these people, they fought, for the freedom in UK in Parliament. These people, but really, when you go to the heart of it, truly heart of it, when you talk about how the heart and the mind is always going to be enslaved to something. It's always going to say desires and that kind of. I know it's a different discussion, but really it's the perfect solution. And no other religion talks about and uses the word slavery that in the narrations. That true liberation, is in the servitude of the Creator. That's the only way you can be fully free, full freedom across the board, across time, across nations. And I just wanted to add that, inshallah.
Absolutely. And Muqeed Khan makes a good point as well. He says debt slavery not only exists today, but with how interest works, it's getting worse. Look, let's face it, the systems that are employed in the world today require a type of slave, right? We human beings, it's just, like I said, it's just a different type of slavery. It's taken on a different guise. It's taken on a different type of twist.
Different form, updated.
And that's another discussion in itself. But anyway, and I just want to let the brothers and sisters know we're going to try to go through all of your questions. We're just going to quickly go through this clip, and then we'll get back to the questions, inshallah. So let me play. I don't think Sabur is struggling. He's lost his internet connection. So let's see, inshallah, he should be back on soon, hopefully. But let's carry on playing. I think he's here. 1 second. Yeah, man, he's here, mashallah. And he looks different again.
He's coming there.
He's wearing glasses.
No, it's the effects.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. So
it's not the effects. It's not the effects.
He's actually got glasses on.
Oh my God. Where's the cigar?
Bro.
I really thought it was the effect.
The only thing that's missing is a cigar. You know that?
That's it. Miswak, bro. Miswak.
Yeah, let me just make him bigger for a second so everyone can see what he looks like right now.
Yes, bro.
Everyone's
my cousins.
They look like pixels.
All right, I'm gonna play this.
Yeah, go on.
still
I
be
had a quote as well to say after this, yeah, when you played it.
to look back on what they said
Mm.
in the 19th century. Well, something is changing as the centuries go by. In Outgrowing God, I call it something in the air, which of course doesn't explain anything.
It doesn't mean
But
anything.
what I mean by that is that it's not literally,
Okay.
it's a collection of conversations between people, dinner party conversations, parliamentary decisions, congressional debates, judicial decisions by judges, juries, newspaper articles, journalism. All these things together conspire together to produce something in the air, something that defines a given century or maybe even a given decade, with the moral values of that decade.
Okay, I think that's a good place to get some thoughts. Sabur, before we get your thoughts on this particular point about something in the air and discuss that thing, we were talking about slavery as you went offline, because there was this whole thing about, okay, Islam abolished racism, but what about slavery? You have any thoughts on that?
So, what's his name? Jonathan Brown. He's got a book on this, and I'd recommend everybody reads that, because I just want to say something very, very simple. Don't use the word slavery. This for everybody watching. Don't use the word slavery in Islam in the same way that it's used, like the slavery that was in terms of the Western world going and enslaving Africa, because we have clear evidences from the Prophet ﷺ that it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't the same thing. Even the Prophet ﷺ forbade in one narration to say my slave boy or my slave girl. And slaves supposedly who have no rights in Islam, they have rights. So clearly it's not the same thing. Eating with you at the table, having a contract with them for freedom, limiting, freeing them repeatedly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a joke when people try and compare Western slavery to what happened in the world, and Islam simply couldn't just come along and change the world order in one go. So make sure you read that book. And fundamentally, if an atheist brings up slavery in Islam, I'll say to them, well, from your perspective, it's all subjective anyway. Don't try it. Remember, Nadeem and Imran, moral nihilism is the conclusion if you're an atheist. And if you're an atheist and you have to be a moral nihilist, you don't have the right to talk about rape, slavery, killing, racism. Everything is meaningless. It's totally meaningless. So we should never entertain an atheists when they ask these questions.
Absolutely, bro. And exactly the point where it's made, I think is very profound. What you're saying is that Islam came at a time where slavery was just rampant globally, right? It was just a part of the structure of the world. And what it came was, to remove it immediately would have been, from the perspective of wisdom, wouldn't have made sense. Like, what would happen to these people? But what it did is it changed the whole structure. It changed the whole outlook of what slavery was at the time, right? It brought rights to people. It encouraged the freeing of slaves at any given opportunity, as an expiation, etc. So it gradually was doing away with this problem in a very profound way, to actually solve it, and not to, in some ways, make it worse. And I think that, and like you said, the book about the book you recommended is definitely a place for people to go and look into this further, inshallah. Okay, that being said, bro, I'm trying to take you seriously with those glasses. And let's carry on. So what do you think about this most recent point that Dawkins just made about something in the air? So morals are determined by whatever's in the air at any given century, any given time. What that thing in the air, according to him, is it's a bit of dinner table discussions, a bit of thinkers and philosophers having debates and discussions, political points of view, etc. Just the views and ideas of people at any given time shapes what the moral outlook is. Taking that into consideration with this whole idea of progress, our morals progressing towards a type of perfection, as he wants to try sort of suggest, and where we find ourselves today, where we've sort of got it figured out now, and we're morally there pretty much. How do you sort of juxtapose these two things, bro? Give us your thoughts.
That's a very good question. And the way I'd put it is, it kind of reminds me of Anthony Flew, the famous atheist who became a believer in God. His argument of a death from 1,000 qualifications. So, it's so, you know, and he used it as an argument against God, who he eventually obviously rejected that argument. But you know, it's kind of like this sort of vague notion, and then you try and pin it down and you say, is it that? And they're like, no. And it's like, what is it exactly? And this is the problem. When it comes to God or spirituality, Dawkins, he doesn't even give Sam Harris, you know, time. He doesn't have time for Sam Harris, because it's like, it's vague, it's not scientific, it's not empirical, it's not justifiable, it's not rational, it's not logical, right? But when it comes to morality, he's basically going down the same rabbit hole of vagueness and saying there's something in the air, you know, something about philosophy, something about coffee and discussing philosophy. I mean, he doesn't have an answer. That's the answer. He doesn't have an answer. He can't give an answer according to his hardcore scientific empirical worldview that it's got to be something to do with tangible reality. He knows he can't do that. So then he's trying to hide in vagueness. And if I was Joe, I'd turn around and say to him, excuse me, Mr. Dawkins, could you be more vague, please? Because you're not giving an answer. You're not actually giving a scientific, rational, justifiable, empirical, measurable answer. And if you want to maintain the line of scientism, then don't try and go into the rabbit hole of vagueness, because that's the very thing that you keep speaking out against. So that's a serious contradiction that he needs to sort out.
Yep, absolutely. Nadeem bhai, what's your thoughts on that,
Well,
bro? Something here.
I just want to, on that, you know, Joe Rogan, I've seen his debates. He's one of those hosts who are very like strong. You know, he'll say his views. He doesn't hold back. Yeah, there's one he had with Faraz Zahabi and others. Joe Rogan's podcast is well known, and he's probably the biggest podcaster in the world, right? And he's been doing it for a long time. It seems like he's in awe of Dawkins, yeah. But perhaps after this interview, I'm not the first one, he might be thinking, actually, you know, why am I in awe of him? And again, I want to go to the point which I said at the beginning. A lot of people see Dawkins as a reference point, and I think Dawkins's dawah or his viewpoints, I'm sure a lot of people are watching him, say, you know, like his vagueness and in the air. I mean, like I said before, if he's an academic, give your viewpoint, which we obviously don't agree with, but then give us some citations, give us some reference as an academic do. I read a comment, a quote about Dawkins, but I was trying to read out really quickly, yeah, because I think kind of summarizes the Dawkins and morality. So the guy says, Dawkins and his colleagues have been promoting atheism for years, with some notion of some kind of humanistic utopia, where children in parks will be experimenting with model rockets. Every adult will be an engineer, doctor, or scientist. All of the planet will be clean and perfect, etc., etc. Yet here we are, and talk about 2020. Religion has been drastically declining in the West, right? Which means morality has been declining in the West, and we've never been so sick, mentally ill. There's mental health issues all around. It's the biggest issue, right? Radicalized, fanatical, perverted, homelessness, addictions, contaminated, illiterate, angry, confused, depressed people. That's what the society is producing right now. So I just thought that was a very interesting quote of how they're pushing their atheism for the years, and they say forget religion, but look at the results. Look what's happening. Look at society. Look at what's happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world is proof in and of itself, subhanAllah.
Yeah,
okay, so let's finish off this clip, inshallah.
Yeah, and then I want to get some questions. The brother Sadiq is there.
Yep.
He's here, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the questions straight after, bro. Inshallah, we're gonna go through all of them.
Sadiq, if you're watching, stay there, bro.
Which is just so superior today in terms of the general public has access to, in terms of what we understand of human beings. It's just different than it was back then, and it continues to be different. And now with the internet, we have so much more access to these conversations. And it's not just about being at a dinner table with the right people. You can watch YouTube videos of yourself debating religious scholars.
So that progress of something in the air will, as it were, take on an accelerated pace because of the internet.
Yeah,
and I think that's a very hopeful sign. Of course, the internet.
Okay, guys, I want to get your thoughts on this. I was going to carry on, but I think this is an important point. Again, now this is where they're starting to highlight through the way they're discussing this, is that something in the air is almost put on steroids now and turbo boost because you have the internet, you have social media. The assumption here, Subur and Nadeem, the assumption here is that there's something in the air plus time equals refinement and morals. That's the argument here. Something in the air
will catch up.
equals a refined, correct, objectively true, and good moral outlook. That just doesn't add up, man. Especially from the perspective of atheists and naturalists. Any thoughts on that, Sabur?
look here. It doesn't. The world is not getting better with more internet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
YouTube.
look at this. Look at this. Yeah. Look. This is what we have today. We have mindless zombies playing video games.
You were playing this.
I can see.
So who's on a rampage?
See, right behind me, you see mindless zombies all day playing video games. Can you see? Right there. Yeah. So this whole argument that if we have internet, yeah, if we have social media, if we have all these things, the world will get better. In fact, we're becoming into more weird creatures in terms of our actions, in terms of the way we treat each other, in terms of the way that we're addicted to video games, we're addicted to well, not in the case of my cousin who I just bullied, but in the case of just
Science and
generally
technology.
science and technology. I mean, Imran, the whole world is getting worse morally. It's getting more corrupt, right? It's the opposite of this formula which you rightfully extrapolated from this vague notions that they were sort of talking about, which is lots of people talking plus time is equal to better morality. If anything, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen with the advent of the internet that sicknesses and diseases, mental, physical.
Sabur, you're freezing up, bro. Go back towards the internet signal a bit more, just before you cut out.
He's walking around. He's on it.
What about now?
I'm worried the birds are gonna start pecking out of his head in a second. Looks like a nest.
All right, what were you saying?
Yeah, carry on. The signal was quite bad outside. Carry on with what you're saying about the formula.
Yeah. So you said space plus. You said
something in the air plus time.
Yes,
internet,
something in the air plus time,
internet plus science and technology. Yeah.
So basically, look, something in the air plus time plus
internet.
Lots of information, which is basically the internet. Lots of people talking is equal to better morality. In fact, we've seen the opposite. So I don't know what's in the air. There's plutonium, crack. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely screwing up the formula.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, ignorant one. He says if evolution is wrong, so what is your alternative? I'm assuming he's saying this in regards to morality. Now, when we're sitting here, Sabur, and we're saying it's not getting better, it's getting worse. As Muslims, people that believe in a creator, that believe that the creator created us, and he created good and bad and right and wrong, and he gave us a moral compass, and he gave us revelation with an outline of what's good and bad and right and wrong. We can sit there and make that distinction because we have a criteria by which we are assessing good and bad by, right? We can make that claim. The problem is on atheism and naturalism, they have no external criteria by which they can evaluate and say, yeah, we're getting closer to what's perfect. We're getting to the core, we're drilling to the core. It doesn't work like that for them, right? So I want to know, I want to understand, what is it, what tells them on atheism and naturalism that we're getting closer to perfection or closer to what's good and bad, further away? How do they gauge this, man?
Bro, it's almost like they're waiting for something, right? So they're waiting for science and technology to become more perfect, more available, more in depth. AI. Maybe they're waiting for AI to reach some sort of crescendo of perfection, so then they can input some ideas. Can you define morality for us? And this crazy space robot that will come in the future, you say, okay, this is morality based upon the last since the Earth began. Maybe that's what So this is the way I understood it. The way I was thinking about it. Hot air, something in the I call it hot air, plus technology, plus science catching up, will eventually have some sort of answers. And so then there'll be a full circle. Then they'll become enslaved to that robot and be enslaved to AI, and they'll define their morality.
Yes, yeah, so I think that's a good point. So I think we should replace something in the air with hot air. That makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just carry on playing this, and let's finish off, inshallah.
It also can be used for the opposite purpose. But I think there's a kind of
I'll let you off
there, because especially if you look at benighted areas of the world like Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Now he's asked for it.
Where until recently the idea of being an atheist was simply inconceivable. It was off the radar. They didn't even consider it. It wasn't something that they thought was possible. Now they do, because they got the internet, and we've got a project in CFI of downloading free of charge as PDFs several of my books, including The God Delusion, and will be out there as well.
Imran, I just want to add in, if you just pause it there for a
Yeah.
second. This shows you that this man, he's clearly from another planet. He's completely unaware of what's actually going on. Yeah. So he said the idea of atheism in places like Pakistan and Afghanistan is unheard of, or whatever. So what he needs to understand is that atheism took hold in Afghanistan in the 70s and 80s. An atheist communist government took over Afghanistan by force. They taught people atheism. People that went to mosques were killed. I have a video with a brother Hamidullah on this, in which 2 million people were killed by the communists, by the atheists, in which many Muslims were forced to basically accept the atheist ideology. And you had all of this forced atheism which didn't work. It never worked in Afghanistan. Even though they had power, even though they had money, even though they tried to bid people through either coercion, threats, incentives, whatever they did, and they had 10 full years in which they had control over Afghanistan, the atheists, from the primary school level to the government institutions. They imposed state atheism, and they even, the president, who was an atheist at the time, he even mocked the Quran, he even mocked the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yet today Afghanistan is not atheist. So I don't think the book of an old, aging, fragile white man who thinks that his intellectual thoughts are so superior that the Afghans are going to fall over and start bowing down to him. I think he needs a bit of a reality check, and he needs to understand if the atheists couldn't do it in 10 years with all of their sophisticated arguments and all of their materialism and Marxism and Darwinism, then he's not going to achieve it with his little book.
Absolutely, bro. That's a brilliant point. Jazakallah khair. So, I mean, history is testament to this. When in Afghanistan, in the Soviet Union, when these ideas were pushed by force, physical force, it didn't work then. You couldn't knock the belief of God and, in God, and that God deserves worship out of people at that time with such pressures. It's not going to happen merely through a book, and just some ideas which in and of themselves are very wishy-washy, as we're seeing right now. They have no strength to them, right? If you can't make sense of morality, the very base thing that makes us human in some perspectives, I mean, what are you going to make sense of? Or what are you going to provide to humanity and the world from that perspective? It doesn't make any sense. Nadeem Bhai, any thoughts on atheism in Pakistan and what's happening currently? So we looked at Sabur gave us a bit of the past. Currently, what do you think is happening?
What I would say from recently, the people that I have quoted the God Delusion and read it. I'm not sure if he's translated in Urdu, but maybe just the English. But the thing is, like we discussed before on other shows, it's a case of they've not read the book properly, because they quickly read it, and because it's written by a Westerner, and it's got some nice words in there and some fancy words, but when you really read it, it actually doesn't make any sense. So when the people I've met, when we ask them to read the book again, and then now read the Quran, they think, okay, that's actually like rubbish. We just went through it's like almost like a phase. People went through a phase. So just like Afghanistan, they went through a phase. Pakistan go through a phase, and when they really think about it, they actually, what, this guy's, I don't know what he's saying. It's hot air. It's something in the air. So that's
I just wanted to quickly add something before I forget. Raja Zia said something to us in the group. Well, generally, this is one of his views. He's a popular da'i in Pakistan, and he said any problem to do with supposedly atheism in Pakistan is a problem of affluence, is a problem of desires, is a problem which is not intellectual. And sorry to butt in here, but absolutely, that's been my experience. I've been to university.
You spent a year there, haven't you, mashallah?
Yeah, less than a year, about 8 months, but I've been to universities in, what's it called? Islamabad, Karachi, Lahore, the best universities in Pakistan. And I can just say this honestly, and anybody can go and find out. The biggest problem that we face in Pakistan is the biggest problem that we're facing in the West, and the biggest problem we're facing all across the world is materialism, hedonism, and making our desire our God. That's the fundamental problem. Everything else is a sideshow. And I think it's important for us to understand that when it comes to atheism, atheism is something which affects people of affluence. Okay, people of affluence. Dr. Uthman Latif, just to let you guys know, and a heads up, he's written a paper on atheism and affluence based upon the Quranic paradigm. And I highly recommend when the paper comes out, inshallah, we do a show on it as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Inshallah, we'll even get Dr. Uthman on if he's available. Inshallah.
Imran, before you carry on, bro, because of time as well, I want to get the brother, if he's still Sadiq, brother, if you're still on live, please make yourself visible, and if you've got any questions, post it now before.
Yeah, Nadeem, if you could read out the brother's questions, inshallah, because I've got loads on my screen and I'm struggling to sort of flick through them, so you'll see it when it comes up, because you know the brother just.
If he's still on, you can ask the question. But yeah, continue. Did you want to continue with the video?
Yes, no. So Sabur, that's just on the point that he made about atheism not being the main problem, materialism being the problem. It's absolutely right. It's like materialism is like the club. Yeah, that's where people are going and drinking, going crazy. Atheism, I see as just the outfit. That's what it is. It's the dress you're wearing to go out and do these things, because it goes hand in hand. You're an atheist. There is no God, no accountability. Do whatever you want. Oh, let's focus on the material world. Let's get drunk on the material, basically. So it sort of goes hand in hand from that perspective as well. Muqeed Khan says all roads of atheism ultimately lead to moral nihilism. All that matters is if the atheist is sincere enough to admit and smart enough to realize the inevitable conclusion. Any thoughts on this comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this. A lot of atheists who are honest atheists, they become existential nihilists. The ones who've thought about it, and the logical conclusion that they reach is a depressing one. And this is why those atheists who are truly in tune with the conclusions of atheism, who reject moral value, moral worth, human dignity, right and wrong, they realize it's all subjective and meaningless, and the world is hopeless, and everything you do in 1,000 years from now is meaningless. These are the people who will never ever want anybody else to become an atheist.
Absolutely, subhanAllah. Okay, let me play this clip, finish off now, inshallah.
Being downloaded by large numbers of people. The first PDF download of the Arabic edition of the God Delusion was downloaded 13 million times. Arabic edition, 13 million times. So now they are being exposed to the possibility of atheism, which wasn't a possibility. Of course, the internet's also exposing them to Islamic propaganda, but they've had that all along from imams, mullahs, and their madrasa schools. But now they've got it coming the other way as well. And I have great hope that the internet will mark a turning point.
What do you think about his great hope, guys? Nadeem, let's start with you, Nadeem.
So what did he say that? He said great hope? I thought he was talking about the Arab world. Yeah.
Basically, his idea is he has great hope that through the internet and his writings, he will influence people and bring them to the light, which is atheism.
Well, the thing is, he mentioned the figure 13 million in the Arab world. The thing is, I think anybody would ask how many Qur'ans have been downloading at the same rate every day. It's probably twice of that on a daily level. So you've got on the one side, he's just claimed to this figure. We're doing our dawah, we're pushing our vagueness, we're pushing our vague atheist ideas in the Arab. It's like someone, he said it so proudly, it's like a victory. But then again, if he's objective, if he's balanced, he should say, okay, but at the same time, how many Qur'ans have been downloaded, and how many Sirah books are downloaded, and how many people are coming back to Islam as well. So show that as well. Show the other side. Don't just show just select few. And the reality is, as far as I know from Gallup polls and stuff, we're not saying atheism does not exist in the Middle East. It does. There are people, but it's such a significant. It's like a small, very small minority. Not even a minority. It's the wrong word. There's a number there, but it's so insignificant. And yeah, I don't know. He has to keep trying harder, I suppose. Maybe write another book. But in his old age, will he? I don't know. Does he have the energy? Revised edition.
So it's kind of like not to be. it's this grand, megalomaniac behavior that I am creating this movement across the world, that I 13 million people downloaded my book. I mean, we live in a world of, if we go back to, Nadeem will probably remember this, Top of the Pops, right? Where you used to have, Nadeem is like, no, I was too pious. I've never heard of Top of the Pops. So, you used to get these one-hit wonder songs, right? So these songs, they used to be popular for like a week and then they were finished, right? So if a book or if a video or if something goes viral, it doesn't mean it's actually made a significant difference in the world. Even if we look back a few years ago, there was this film, Coney 2012, which went viral, right? So all these things go viral, but things going viral doesn't mean they're going to last or they're going to have a lasting impact. What we got to recognize, is God was supposed to be dead in the 1960s. Marxism, socialism was spreading all across the world. Religion was dying. Then you had the Iranian Revolution. Not that I support the Iranian government or anything, or I'm just talking about just purely from a sociological perspective. You had the revolution in America with Billy Graham, this revolution in Christianity. America's become more evangelical over the years. You've got this revision of Hindu nationalism or Hindu ideology in India. You've got the rise of Christianity in China, and you've got the massive explosion of conservative Islamic beliefs all across the Middle East. I mean, I was in Egypt not too long ago, and I love Egypt. Egypt is subhanallah, amazing people. But what's beyond doubt is Egypt in the 1960s and 70s was just being finished by secularism and atheism. And today you go to Egypt and there is a huge explosion of conservative Islam, right? So, this whole idea that religion is dying, belief in God is dying, actually what's dying is the fact that you've been telling us religion has been dying for a long time. And how long before it's going to come true? I mean, we were being told religion is going to be finished 100 years ago, right? Then, about 50 years ago, it's like the future world will be no religion. I remember seeing a video 12 years ago. The video was Islam will collapse in 10 years, right? And that video went viral. And that video is 12 years old, right? I mean, people are deluded. These atheists are making huge claims. And what they got to realize is that fundamentally, the message of La ilaha illallah is going to dominate the world whether they like it or not. And even if at the moment they seem to think that they're winning, they need to look at history and realize there's never been an atheist civilization. There's never been an atheist power. The closest thing was the Soviet Union, and we all know how that ended. And China is kind of trying to flex this muscle and also go down the route of state atheism, and they're going to face the same fate.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. It's history is testament. If anything, we learn from all of these examples. Each time the belief in God and religion is people have tried to suppress this and overcome this, it's erupted back out in a far more of a profound and powerful way. And this just highlights the nature of a human being. This is the fitrah that we refer to as Muslims, is the nature of a human being to recognize its creator, and not only recognize its creator, but has an affinity to worship its creator. And obviously different people have, the particular outlook on religion or God may have been altered or changed or shifted or distorted. That's not evidence against that there is a nature that's being expressed. It's just it doesn't know what channel to go down, and it sometimes catches the wrong channel. But this is and again, like you said, history is testament. Atheism is a failed project. It doesn't get anything off the ground initially because of moral and existential nihilism. Like you said, there's no great civilization in the world that's been atheist, right? Because if you have moral and ethical nihilism, if you have existential nihilism, you can't move from there. There is nothing that's going to drive you to grow and to expand and to develop in any way, shape, or form. And what we've seen is civilizations have collapsed when they have turned away from their ethical and moral principles, right? And this is something that's been repeated time and time again, and it's taken on a slightly different guise or form at different points in history. And that should be a lesson for people, that they need to move on from atheism because it doesn't work on an individual level. It doesn't work on a communal level. It doesn't work on a social level. it works on no level, right? And this is why, bro, I really believe atheism in and of itself, when you see how weak it is as an ideology, when you see how little impact or benefit it brings to humanity, if anything, how detrimental it is for humanity, it makes you wonder, why is it catching on? Why do some people still want to adhere to it? And this is where I believe it ties in with what it supports other ideologies such as materialism.
Yeah, here's where I'd like to bring in the thoughts of Asadullah Andalusi. He made a very valid point. It was quite sound bite-ish, but it's quite funny. He said half of new atheism has gone over to Jordan Peterson, and there's a lot of truth in that statement. You'd be surprised how many atheists have turned to Jordan Peterson, because they realize that atheism is attractive if you're a young spotty teenager and you watch these strong masculine figures like Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens. But as soon as you hit your mid-20s, as soon as you start hitting your 30s and maybe perhaps mid-30s, you start to think, what the hell? What's the point of life? What's my life going to be worth in 1,000 years from
you
now?
gain more wisdom,
and that's when you start thinking about God.
The more wisdom you gain, the more you come to enlightenment.
Nadeem, wrap it up for us, bro, before we move on to the questions. Any last thoughts from your end, bro?
No, I was just saying, Sabur just made a nice point of quoting Asadullah, mashallah, who's experienced, I think he actually came from an atheism background, subhanAllah, himself.
No, not me.
No, Asadullah.
Asadullah,
Yeah.
I think he was a Christian.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So he came from a non-Islamic background, and now he understands and he deals with atheists all the time. But that's what it is. The more wise you get, the more you understand that, okay, atheism actually it's just a silly folly, and it's just something in the air. I can't help just quoting Dawkins all the time. Yeah? Something in the air, hot air, I think let's go to questions, bro, because of time.
Yes, bro.
So Sadiq, he's asked a question. If you brothers can maybe...
If you give me a timestamp, Nadeem, and I'll bring you up on the screen.
1:58 p.m.
Start reading it. I'll bring you up, inshallah.
Okay, so he's saying that we willingly reject many of the morals in the Quran. So I don't know if he's quoting himself or who he's quoting, including the belief that women are allowed to be beaten by men, or that slavery is allowed even under certain conditions. I don't think that the Quran is not a great basis to set morals on. I'm not sure what exactly. I don't know.
So we already dealt with the slavery issue. That's done, right? But I really want Sadiq, I think it is, to recognize something. Yeah. Firstly, to critique a particular moral position, you have to have another position. You can't just shoot blanks in the dark. You got to be very clear. Okay, so if you're going to say something's false, then something's got to be true. What are you judging by? And if you're going to judge it, then you basically have to come to a conclusion. The conclusion you're going to come to is morals are objectively true only if God exists. So then there's two conditions. The first is that you have to believe in God, and two, you have to show what God has prescribed. Yeah. These two are the only way that you can actually believe in objective morality, because you might have to, somebody may be a moral skeptic, right? They may be like, okay, there may be some morals out there, but we don't know what they are. But these two conditions, they're very important, that God is the anchor for the transcendent existence of objective morals, and two, what those are. Once we have these two, then we can say this is objectively right, objectively wrong, whatever. But if you just say, I feel like it, well, Stalin didn't feel like it, Hitler didn't feel like it. Dawkins, when he's giving advice about aborting children which are disabled, unborn children, that's not, he doesn't like it. So, the fact is, it's very important that if you're going to attack a position, you have a position, okay? And this whole idea that, the Quran supports the idea of women being beaten up. So the Prophet ﷺ was the walking Quran, and we know everything about his life, and he never laid his hands on a woman, right? So this whole nonsensical view, and what we do understand is Soviet Union, an atheist state, they had massive problems with domestic violence, massive, right? So this whole idea that, oh yeah, once we believe in God, the world will be filled, once we become atheists, the world will be filled with rabbits and rainbows, and the lion will play with the lamb. Nadeem is going to be a world wrestling champion. The whole world is going to somehow subatomically change and become better. Is total nonsense.
Yep.
Bro. No, I'm just trying to understand. So I hope Brother Sadiq, because I'm not sure if he's quoting someone or if he's asking the question.
Sadiq has put another point up. He says Quran is not a great basis to set morals on. And again, I think is addressed by what Sabur said. You need when you make such claims, you need an external criteria by which you're judging.
He's quoting someone called Francis Fukuyama, but I'm not sure to do with which topic.
Yeah. So
Western democracies, yeah.
So look, this whole discussion, like I said before, if you're a moral nihilist, get lost. You have no position. Imagine I walk in.
They're already lost.
Crawley Sharif, yeah. I walk into Crawley Sharif, yeah, and I just start walking around and I start pointing at people's hands in the town center and saying, "You guys are not covering your hands, therefore you're immoral." Yeah. I'd get lynched. It'd be like, what are you talking about? Why did you come up with this arbitrary thing? Yeah. So I can either just
you can say that. Why are you not wearing masks? Because of
whatever. But if you're a moral nihilist, then just get lost. Understand you have no basis. You have no basis at all.
But they'll say we're already lost. So how can we get even more lost? Anyway.
Sorry.
No, carry this on. This is good.
They're already lost. They're already. You're saying get lost. I'm saying they're already lost. How much more lost?
Sorry. Let me just make a quick comment to Sadiq here. Yeah. This refutation that I was doing of moral nihilism. This wasn't for you. I mean, I don't know what your position is. My suggestion to you is for you to build up your relationship with Allah, for you to worship Allah, for you to start reading the Quran and pondering, and not be affected by these. Because I'm assuming you asked this question under the presumption that this is what they're saying to you. Just understand they don't have a position, and understand that how on earth can atheists have anything to offer when 1,000 years from now everything's meaningless anyway? So true happiness, true success is in worshipping Allah, and your heart will find peace in worshipping Allah. Everything else is meaningless.
Yep.
As the Prophet ﷺ said, everything in this dunya is cursed. Nadeem, what's the rest of the narration?
Can't remember. It is a famous hadith.
Pondering Soul says, "Lol, how is Sabur back in the UK and his stream quality has dropped?"
Is my stream quality bad?
Well, yeah, maybe it's a deliberate ploy so no one sees the real state of his hair right now.
That's fine.
It's quite.
Well, he's still got Eid decorations, and so are we actually. So
Okay, I'm just trying to look through some of the questions here.
Sorry. Let me complete the narration. Yeah.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Narration is, I'm paraphrasing it, that everything in this dunya is cursed except the remembrance of Allah and knowledge which leads to it, something like this, right? So this narration makes it clear that this whole dunya and everything in it besides Allah is superfluous.
Yeah, it's insignificant. Yeah. Imran, I think we'll take one more comment from Brother Sadiq, and then we'll either move on or end it, inshallah. So he's saying, timestamp 2:13 p.m. He's saying Western democracies vote for people based on the moral basis of maximizing liberty whilst not infringing on another's rights.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that, Imran?
Okay, so firstly, I'd just like to make it clear. This is very important from a perspective of living in the UK. We're not challenging the idea of democracy. We're not questioning it.
Yeah.
In fact, even the question of bringing up West versus Islam or Western democracies, we were simply having a show about atheism and the fact that if you're an atheist, you have to be a moral nihilist. And if you're a moral nihilist, then all value judgments are not worth anything. This is important because challenging democracy can be seen as a type of non-violent extremism under the British law. So I just want to make it clear to everybody, nobody on this show is challenging democracy. And this comment that was brought up, I would just give a very simple thing here. You can have democracies which are based upon Christian values or atheist values or whatever it is. Our main point is any moral judgments that you make are superfluous if you do not have a belief in God, right? So democracy is not automatically tied with atheism as well. That's also something very important, because you can have people of certain beliefs, but other than that, I don't want to make any comments on democracy.
Yeah. So here's, I think, a question where I wanted to sort of tie in the end of the show with. We've sort of challenged and looked at Dawkins' outlook on morality, how he tries to account for it. Nick L is asking, and I don't know if it is related to what I'm going to ask you now, but it may be. He says, what basis do you set your morals on? So if I was to take this question and ask you now, Sabur and Nadeem, fine, atheism doesn't provide an objective account for moral values and duties. As a Muslim, why is it any different for you? So yeah, what makes it different for you, basically? How does being a Muslim give you an objective standard for morality?
It's very, very simple for us. Objective morality has to have some sort of foundations. Has to be based upon something, ontological basis. It has to be grounded upon something. And the only thing which has a more, for me, explanatory power, a basis which is intuitive, is God, is Creator, is Allah. So anything. And as we've done the show, we kind of mentioned it a few times. Any other way of you trying to justify or trying to get your objective morality from is going to be vague. It's going to be contradictory. I think like if we don't have God, then what are the alternatives? Is it biology? Is it society? Just to pick on society, as we mentioned a few times before. If you say, okay, society would define morals, and I think Dawkins kind of alluded to that, then we have clear examples where it's failed. Nazism in the 30s, where people said, okay, the society state will provide morality. Well, look at the horrors that came out of that. And people, this should be highlighted again, and people forget about these things. Look at the Russian state in the 50s under Stalinism, the amount of deaths and chaos. So you have to have Islam explains morality, and I think one of the names of Allah is I think Al-Bir, the source of all goodness. Allah says in the Quran. I mean, not only do we believe philosophically that Allah, God, is the basis of all objective morality, that's where it comes from, but Islam talks about it. It discusses it in detail in the Quran, in the Hadith literature, and in the Salaf quotes. The alternative, what do you have? Like we discussed, hot air, vague air, something in the air. Science might catch up. It's very the one thing that, just the last point, it's just very vague. It doesn't go in depth as Islam does. Subhanallah, it's always vague. They may have 1 or 2 lines here and there. Oh, we don't believe in God, but we do believe in objective morality because of vagueness. That's just some of my thoughts, inshallah. But whatever Brother Sabu wants to add.
So the question is, what basis do you set your morals on? And the answer is Allah. It's as simple as that. Allah is the first, Allah is the last, and Allah is the everlasting. I mean, if that is not satisfactory enough for you, then give us something better.
Yeah, simple as that. Anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up? Nadeem?
No, as usual, for the people who are watching and those who are going to watch this later, again, if you are someone that's, and I really believe, again, a question of sincerity comes in there. If you want to have an argument, if you just want to look good on a live session and just throw a few words out in there and defend your position just because you're bored or entertainment, then question that. Yeah, we should be thinking about to be sincere in our search for the truth. Yeah, and that's everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims, right? And so if you're really sincere, and I would really ask everyone to be sincere, is really deep down, we need to live by a moral code. We have to. It's intuitive. Yeah. There's, I think, Professor Markham Ian Markham, he talked about ought. Here's a professor talking about that there's an ought within all human beings. So we should explore that a bit more. We should explore that intuitiveness, that, I need to live by a moral code. Once you get to that stage, now look at all the religions. In Islam, we never say, don't study the religions. Don't look at Hinduism, Buddhism, or other ideologies. We encourage that. And we can confidently say, if you look at Islam now and how Islam provides the basis for morality, from how it discussed in the Quran, from Allah being Al-Bir, the source of all goodness, and all the goodness and the moralities come from there. How the Hadith literature talks about it. It's a case of doing research. A lot of people do a lot of research. They read a lot of books. If you're going to do a lot of research, if you're going to read a lot of books, then why not study Islamic books as well? We've got a lot of literature out there, inshallah. So I would say, don't dismiss it by hearsay and media and a few laws here and there that Islam has. Just one law and that's it. You're throwing Islam out the window. No, study the basis of Islam. Study the literature on this, inshallah.
Inshallah. Sabur, just scribe your thoughts. Says Sabur, are you going to rename your channel? And link to that. When's the next live stream, bro?
The next live stream is in about an hour between myself and brother Imran Hussein, and it's going to be about actually it's going to be around 3:30. No, inshallah it could be. Yeah. So that do you have your live stream at 4?
No, we've got a meeting at 4.
So that will probably be about. It's not going to be that long. It's probably going to be around 3 o'clock. Inshallah, we'll do it for 3 o'clock. And basically, what we're going to be covering is this idea of who made God, right? When you give out design, I'm going to be playing a video clip in which even an atheist disagrees with that, an atheist philosopher with that line of thinking that's valid, and then we're just going to give a few thoughts on it.
Inshallah, brilliant, bro. Also about changing your channel name, because someone else brought this up the other day. What's your thoughts on that? Are you going to change it? Are you going to keep it?
I'm not sure. Ali Dawa gave me some advice. He wanted me to change it. So did Muhammad Hijab, and I'm pretty.
Call it delusions. Just delusions.
I'm most likely going to change it, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah. Okay, guys. So, Jazakallah khair for coming on. Make sure to go over to Sabur's channel, which is currently called Darwinian Delusions. If you have any name suggestions, please share those as well, so we can share them with Sabur for his channel. And we're going to be live in about an hour, maybe 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours time on his channel. Yeah. So, hopefully, just to summarize today, what we've hopefully highlighted is that when it comes to morality and atheism, you do not have any substantial account for morality in any substantial way where you can sort of say morality is objective, and therefore from the atheist position, look at other ideologies, other worldviews, other outlooks, look at Islam in particular and say this is bad or this is wrong, because you don't have any position to do that. Because at best on atheism and naturalism, morality is subjective, subject to change, as articulated quite well by Richard Dawkins himself in his book Outgrowing God, and even in the podcast clip that we just saw there. So that should give people another reason to reconsider atheism, because yet again, from another perspective, atheism fails humanity, because on one end, your nature is screaming out, telling you this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. But on the other hand, your worldview that you're ascribing to strips you from being able to provide an account for that calling, that yearning that you have deep inside. And that's highly problematic for any sort of rational, sane human being that really considers the significance of his life and the significance of his thoughts and his feelings. So really really encourage the atheists to look into alternatives. And as Sabur said, many atheists already have, and hence they've jumped ship and gone to Jordan Peterson's camp, where at least, fine, you may not acknowledge God directly, but at the very least, you're taking a more of an existential look at things, and he's providing you with some form of meaning and value in life. But I would encourage people to look further than that, because even then there are issues, and maybe Sabur, we could do another live stream on this, where there are still issues from the perspective of sort of acknowledging God, but wanting to claim meaning and wanting to claim values and morals, and how that even doesn't fully make sense of right and wrong and morality and the meaning of life. And the next step from there being, and I would say, Islam, in the correct understanding of what Islam is. So hopefully we'll do that in another time. But anyway, make sure you guys share this live stream, get it out to as many people as you can, share it on your social media platforms. Make sure to subscribe, click the notification bell. Make sure to follow Nadeem Ashraf on Dawah Motivation. That's his channel name, that's his social media links, Darwinian Delusions for Sabur. And we will speak to you guys in about 2 hours' time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wave Sabur.